Hi, my name is Trida Jimenez, and I'm going to discuss why poverty is caused by structural features of society and the economy. Poverty is a serious issue for millions of Americans and people all around the world. The significance of poverty not only stems from various hardships people face personally, but largely due to economic difficulties and structural and social inequality. James Henselin, author of A Social Problems Down-to-Earth Approach, defines social inequality as the unequal distribution of wealth, power, income, and opportunities, which has severe effects on the population and how they live their life. Social class, the grouping of people who have similar income, education, and jobs, ends up defining a person and creates a gap between the various ways of life. Individual circumstances and the structural features of society and the economy are two separate ways to describe how people are poor. The view that poverty is based off of individual circumstances relies on things like their desire to work and their education, but ultimately the culture of poverty. There are some accuracies behind the culture of poverty that a person's mindset becomes trapped in the fact that because they are poor, that they will always be poor and there's no way out of that. With that mindset, it will definitely keep them in poverty and could lead to other problems like drug and alcohol addiction and abuse. They can become violent and cause harm to themselves and their family members. In the case of a family, it can cause single-parent households, and which in turn creates a bigger situation of poverty and can lead the child to also grow up in that situation. Although there are many different reasons to describe why people live in poverty, there are usually ways to break free from that cycle, especially in America where we have greater opportunities that other countries do not have. Therefore, the perspective that people are poor due to their own doing has some truth to it, but that is not a strong argument for the staggering number of those who live in need. So the reasoning behind poverty due to structural features in society and the economy is the better measure to explain why there are millions of people living in these conditions. Economic difficulties, structural and social inequality are the three main important factors that contribute to the immense portion of the population living in poverty. The first thing I'm going to discuss is economic effects. Various economic problems within the economy have great consequences on the population living in it. Booms and busts, stagnant incomes, and a nation in debt affects the economy, in turn affects those living in it. U.S. News editorial intern Zach Van Zyl explained that the prolonged economic recession forced millions of Americans into poverty, with nearly 15% of the population and nearly 46.7 million people living below the poverty line in 2014. There is also a significant problem with the official poverty line, as it has not significantly changed since it was first created over 50 years ago. This creates a social issue because the world is a much different place than it was back then, and the poverty line ultimately decides who receives government aid and who does not. Minimum wage jobs also do not provide enough income or benefits for one to fully provide for themselves with today's cost of living, especially in states like California and New York. In addition, because the poverty line is not as influenced by state and region as it should be, many people are not perceived to be living in poverty, which means that they do not qualify for government aid when in reality they can't afford to make ends meet. The next thing I'm going to discuss is structural inequality. Structural inequality creates an inequality in income. Structural inequality also creates an inequality in income. The inverted income pyramid replicates this inequality where it shows that 50% of the nation's income goes to the wealthy and elite, while the lowest level on the pyramid only receives about 3%. It is insane to realize that more than 1/3 of the nation's wealth is owned by only 1% of the U.S. families who own corporate America. The problem is not that these people hold wealth, it is the amount of power that comes with this wealth. The 1% of Americans who own over half of the corporate stock worldwide have immense power over the U.S. economy. Next thing I'm going to discuss is social inequality. Social inequality comes in various forms, from racial or gender discrimination to the extreme differences in lifestyles between the wealthy and those who live in poverty. The significant gap means a lot of things, but one of the main points is that the wealthy benefit from things that the unfortunate cannot. According to David Trout, The widening gap between the very rich, and everyone else is a stain on the social compact and a serious problem for future economic growth. We experience structural inequality. We see it in the quality of local schools and their test scores. We smell it in the streets. We feel it in the sense of danger or safety as we're walking in the streets, and we see this in the access to healthy foods. Education also aids to the argument that structural inequality and the economy impact the reason of poverty. Public schools are built on tax dollars and property tax. However, since the poorer areas produce less tax, there is a significant shortage in revenue offered to the schools. In return, this reflects the inexperienced teachers, and it offers a lower quality education and curriculum. It means that they have older books and resources and lower test scores. With inferior test scores and resources, this means that there is a lack of money in the future for these students who attend these schools are more likely to drop out and are less likely to go to college, get a degree, and attain a stable career. Poverty is a widespread issue for not only in America, but for millions around the world, and this is due to structural features of the society and the economy. I have explained how economic hardships and the structural and social inequality impacts the daily lives of the population. Individual characteristics like the culture of poverty can be the reason why some of these people live in these conditions, but for the population as a whole, this argument does not provide a solid explanation as to why there is a vast portion of the U.S. living in poverty. Thank you.